Assalamu alaikum, it's chapter 11, Parallel and Perpendicular Lines, part 2. The objectives identify that two lines are perpendicular when the product of their slopes is equal to -1. Also, determine the equation of a line passing through a given point and perpendicular to a given line. Prepare these materials. Property. Given two straight lines, D of equation y equal ax plus b, d prime of equation y equal a prime x plus b prime, where a, b, a prime, and b prime are real numbers. We say that d and d prime are perpendicular if the product of their slopes is -1. That means if the slope of d, which is a, times the slope of d prime, which is a prime, equal to -1, then the straight lines d and d prime are perpendicular. Example. Given the two straight lines dy equal -2x minus 3, straight line d prime y equal 1/2x, the slope of the straight line d is equal to -2. The slope of the straight line d prime, it is equal to half. If we multiply -2 by half, we get -1. So we say that the straight lines d and d prime are perpendicular since the product of their slopes is -1. We write a of d times a of d prime equal to -1, then d and d prime are perpendicular. This is the figure of the two straight lines. This is the straight line d and the straight line d prime. As you notice, d is perpendicular to the straight line d prime. Another property, given a straight line d of equation y equal ax plus b, straight line d prime y, a prime x plus b prime, also the real numbers a, b, a prime, and b prime. We say, if d and d prime are perpendicular, then the product of their slopes is -1. That means, if d and d prime are perpendicular, then a times a prime is equal to -1. Example. Find the slope of a straight line L perpendicular to the straight line U of equation y equal -3x plus 7. To find the slope of the straight line L, we have L is perpendicular to the straight line U. Follow the property. If the straight line d and d prime are perpendicular, then a times a prime equal to -1. Here, L and U are perpendicular, so the slope of L times the slope of U, it is equal to -1. Substitute the slope of u, which is equal to -3, we get a of L, it is equal to -1 over -3, which is equal to 1/3. Application 1. Among the following straight lines d, d prime, and L, which are perpendicular. Pause the video and solve this application. Solution. This is the straight line d prime. We must find the slope of the straight line d prime. Here the slope of d is known, which is -1/5. The slope of L is -5. We must find the slope of d prime. Divide all the members by the coefficient of y, which is equal to 2, to get y equal 5x plus 3/2. So the slope of d prime is equal to 5. Now we must multiply the slope of d by the slope of d prime. A of d times a of d prime, it is equal to -1/5 times 5, which is equal to -1. So, since the product of the two slopes is -1, we say that d and d prime are perpendicular. If we multiply the slope of d by the slope of L, we get 1. which is not equal to -1. So we say that the straight line D and the straight line L aren't perpendicular. Also, if we multiply by the slope of D prime by the slope of L, we get -25, which is not equal to -1. Then D prime and L aren't perpendicular. Application 2. Find the value of the real number m such that D and L are perpendicular. Pause this video and solve the application. Here, the straight lines D and D prime are perpendicular. Then we have A of D, the slope of D, times A of D prime, the slope of D prime. It is equal to -1. Substitute the two slopes. M-1 into m plus 1 equal to -1. Apply the rule a minus b into a plus b, which is equal to a square minus b square. M square minus 1, it is equal to -1. Thus m square equal to 0, and so m equal to 0. Here we say that if m equal to 0, then the straight lines D and D prime are perpendicular. How to find the equation of a line passing through a given point and perpendicular to a given line? For example, determine the equation of the line L passing through the point A 3, 5 and perpendicular to the line D of equation y equal half x plus 3. To find the equation of the straight line L, we start finding the slope of L. To find the slope of L, here L is perpendicular to the straight line D. So the slope of L times the slope of D, it is equal to -1. Here A of L times A of D, it is equal to -1. Substitute the slope of D, which is equal to half, and find the slope of L, which is equal to -1 over 1 over 2 equal to -2. Also, the straight line L passes through the point A, so A belongs to the straight line L. We can use the following relation: y minus y of A, it is equal A of L into x minus x of A. Substitute the coordinates of the point A and the slope of the straight line L. Y minus 5 equal -2 into x minus 3. Expand and isolate y to get y equal -2x plus 11, which is the equation of the straight line L. This is the figure. This is the straight line D, and this is the straight line L perpendicular to the straight line D through the point A of coordinates 3, 5. Application: determine the equation of a line L passing through the point I and perpendicular to the line D of equation y equal -3x minus 2. Pause the video and solve this application. Also, to find the equation of the straight line L, we must find the slope of L. Here, L is perpendicular to the line D, so the slope of L times the slope of D, it is equal to -1. Substitute the slope of D by -3, so we get A of L equal to -1 over -3 equal to 1 over 3, which is the slope of the straight line L. L passes through the point I, so I belongs to the straight line L. We use the following relation: y minus yi, it is equal to A of L into x minus xi. Substitute the coordinates of I and the slope to get y equal 1 over 3x plus 5 over 3, which is the equation of the straight line L. This is the figure. Straight line D and straight line L perpendicular to the straight line D through the point I of coordinates -2, 1. Review from the textbook, page 155, and this is the homework. As a summary, we have two straight lines, D and D prime. If D is parallel to D prime, then their slopes are equal. If the slopes are equal, then D is parallel to D prime. If D is perpendicular to D prime, then the product of their slopes equal to -1. And if the product of their slopes is equal to -1, then D is perpendicular to D prime. Thank you for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.